plan to eradicate the Saiyans was interesting. Trunks slicing up dudes with an icicle, Frieza's back for the 27th time, Sea Gods, Super Saiyan Vegeta with pupils, Bug-Eyed Turles, disco soundtrack, a Tuffle scientist getting revenge on the Saiyans by creating a creature with the sole purpose of killing Saiyans. That sounds familiar. This was a really unique production. These were 2 special episodes that adapted a video game plotline and sold on video as a visual guide. It was also remade in 2010, but we ain't talking about that. And even though on the surface it might look like some unimportant project, in terms of the staff list, it's literally Dragon Ball Z's biggest names, from animators to writers. Like, it has one of the series' best directors, Yamauchi, who choreographed the Goku vs Kid Buu fight, and Janemba vs Goku, Goku vs Majin Vegeta. I mean, you even had the guy who literally wrote Bardock's backstory, and all 13 Dragon Ball Z movies, and was the series composer, aka the main writer of the Dragon Ball Z anime, Takao Koyama. But does that talent come through? Is this some hidden gem that deserves more praise? Or does it have as much depth as Z Movie 7? Guess we'll see. From the start, Gohan is on firewood duty, Goku's stretching, and then Popo floats from above. Didn't expect the magic carpet, honestly I didn't really expect Popo. And he informs the two of the gas situation. What's kind of funny is Chi-Chi is never actually shown in this whole scene. Of a matter of fact, this whole OVA, it's just pure dialogue. On the art side, Masahiro Shimanuki is the animation director, aka supervisor for this special, and his corrections are everywhere, so unsure who animated these early parts. Big nose on Bulma caught me off guard though. But yeah, they consult Bulma, she's not aware of gas situation. Goku scratches head, but Popo drops the lore, informing everyone that they need to visit 4 locations. Piccolo shows up, but so does Dr. Lychee's henchman. That's this dude. Now the first part is animated by Kazuya Hisada, one of Z's top action animators. His posing is pretty easy to pick out, and yeah, solid output by the GOAT. Interesting movement, his work is never linear and boring. Like, it's nothing massive, but having these 2 monsters alternate in their position to the camera, it gives an impression of depth for one, but also excitement. Say to the standard approach you would see in Z, where characters just kind of all together launch at the camera in a basic linear pattern. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but when you put all those little things together and alongside the fierce facial expressions and the dynamic poses, it makes for some fun action, which Hisada showed time and time again in his Dragon Ball Z era. Now, Shimanuki doesn't correct a lot of the fighting here, although I wish he did when it comes to Tomokichi Takeuchi. He was still drawing Goku with the long stretched out giraffe necks, eyes are completely off model, and his animation is a bit jerky. But it's strangely for only 1 cut before switching back to Hisada for a bit, and then to another Dragon Ball animation legend, Naotoshi Shida. And man, his poses are so good. Reminds me a little of this one he drew on the first Broly movie. But then back to Hisada again, great angles here. Gohan's hair color gets completely messed up though. 1 second he's punching Green Dude as a Super Saiyan, then he's in base. The rest of this seems to be Hisada as well. In general, him and Shida animate a heap of cuts on this special. After the quick fight, everyone splits off and Goku must face his most powerful enemy yet, a generator. Well, at least until this orange thumb dude interrupts. Once again, Shida jumps in here, unsure if he was just heavily redrawn in the previous cuts. Anyways, he's still got the big mouth Goku thing going on. An all-time classic, and it seems Shimanuki again is animating the debris-related scenes with Goku destroying the generator. Very fitting for him. He also animated the first part as well, where Goku breaks the wall when he arrives. I doubt it's just his corrections over someone else, even if he did get really heavy at times. But yeah, it's impactful, just like you would expect from him. Goku's fist is completely messed up, maybe the fault of the Doga artist. And then right at the end, it's Naoki Tate. You can see it pretty clearly in the ear shape with that thick rounded earlobe and the lighter shading. Still looks like the face was partially redrawn by Shimanuki, but yeah, nothing too crazy. Now, plot-wise, there's nothing to point out, like Goku yells at a generator and punches it. Yeah, that's it. And it's the same thing for the Gohan pyramid bit. Now in the game, Gohan actually has to enter the pyramid and rescue a girl that's been turned into a mummy by one of the Guardians defending the gas machine. She then thanks him and takes him to the machine as a reward. Nothing crazy, but it's more interesting than chuck a key blast at a generator. I guess Koyama wanted to focus on fighting. Although Hisada is back, so that makes up for it. Kinda. A lot of it is just reused animation from 5 minutes ago, except with like the canvas flipped and the bad guy recolored. And honestly, that's the status quo of this OVA. Like, reused animation is the name of the game here. I really don't think I've seen so much recycling in a Dragon Ball episode, although when you factor in these animators were still working on the TV series and just finished up on movie 9, despite these OVAs technically having a higher budget than a regular TV episode, time would have still been pretty limited. But what does Piccolo Island Poco have to offer? What an interesting name. Honestly, it's kind of my favorite one out of these mini adventures. The henchman is a complete idiot who thinks that using mines will be the perfect solution to defeat Piccolo. No one ever flies at this point in Dragon Ball, which leads to him game-ending himself on his own mines. True cinema. I would give credits to Koyama, but this idea was just carried over from the game, unlike the previous two. Animated credits, explosions look like Takeuchi's. I'm guessing all the Piccolo shots were maybe just redrawn. But the crew meet their next villain, the Ice Wall, and heck, a lot of those orange guys. Takes me back to how the villains in movie 2 launched a surprise attack from under the ice. Unfortunately, the action is nowhere near as cool as that fight. Just like awkward, sluggish movement and a heap of reused animation, and not just from previous parts, but from this same fight. Like, I don't hate reuse, but when it's 4 cuts one after the other of stuff you just saw 1 minute ago, I will be a hater. At least the section with Vegeta and Trunks is a bit more interesting thanks to Naoki Tate and Yoichi Onishi having a part in it. I'll be real, Onishi's art is so off, you could play tic-tac-toe on that forehead. At least he improved in Super, mostly. But his poses and impact frames are sick, like this cut of all the characters firing away, nice work. But no way, turns out there wasn't 4 generators, there was 5. Time to go to Tongori Tower. Time to meet old villains. And you know what, I won't hate on this choice, it was a newish idea to the franchise at the time, one that Koyama would borrow when writing movie 12. It is a little bit ironic when fans like criticize Super for this aspect of bringing back villains or reusing old concepts, because like within the span of 3 years, you have this same idea used 3 times. Here, Z Movie 12 and the Super 17 arc. It seems Toei have never been able to let go of Frieza. On that note, it is a cool detail to see Frieza and Cooler interact. Anyways, the fighting lasts for a couple of minutes, nothing that long. The way they are defeated though makes not the single bit of sense. You see, everyone is regenerating, but King Kai breaks it down with one sentence. They're Ghost Warriors. And that's it, everyone is defeated now. Like, nothing changes, the squad just fights them the same way they did before. Cool. In terms of the visuals, it's fine. Maybe not. Tomokichi Takeuchi animates a lot of this from the start, and I don't mean to come off like a Takeuchi hater. His work on the original Dragon Ball series, man, countless praise points. But at this time in the series, his style just doesn't work well with Dragon Ball. This is the goofiest Goku I think I've seen in some time. Posing is so stiff as well, like as an example, you can see it's just straight line after another, there's like no flow. And then compare it to this drawing of Trunks, probably a Shimanuki correction, strong bend to like the arms and legs, A+ drawing. This then leads to the backstory of the Saiyans. Goku's surprise reaction is a little odd considering he was technically told this already, well most of it, and ironically enough Koyama was the scriptwriter for that episode, guess he forgot. The small adjustment though is that the Saiyans invaded the planet instead of being natives, which was originally implied. It's interesting because Toriyama would also later go with this in the main story for Super, and GT would as well. King Kai then informs them that Dr. Lychee is at the end of the universe, living in a place called the Dark Planet. Not the most creative name, but it gets the point across. And on that topic of dark, there's this directional choice to have some digital black effect cover everyone. It looks abysmal. They have been soaked in oil. At least Piccolo escaped. And that's episode 1, Earth Saga, now Space Saga. Will this be an improvement? Well, it's certainly faster paced. When we see everyone again, they're already in the spaceship. It seems either the key animator or Doga artist forgot to draw the bottom line for Goku's eye, so bit of a derpy shot to start it off. And just like that, there it is, Dark Planet, very quick. In the actual game, they do go to different planets, bit of a space adventure, they meet pirates, explore underwater cities, meet a sea god, Turles fights a sea god, what? But that's all cut out here with instead the focus entirely on the fighting. It does show you like a brief 15-second slideshow overview. I guess that's better than nothing. The things we lost. But then there's this wild sequence with all this cool lighting and animation. This one here is a particularly time-consuming cut. It involves background animation with a high line count thanks to the interior of the ship, then 5 characters that need to be animated. I mean, they're not that animated, but still, it would have taken a lot of work. The way Yamauchi depicts light is also really cool. Instead of the standard detail shading we usually see in Z, the designs are completely stripped down, which better emphasizes the large shadows. I mean, you can lay it over the top of detailed shading, but I just think this looks more natural. Also, this Goku caught me off guard. I was giving Takeuchi a hard time, but I think this easily takes a trophy of worst looking Goku out of these OVAs. Would love to find out who drew that one. Bad drawings aside, we go to the peak in terms of character art with the best at it this time, Tadayoshi Yamamuro. He finally makes his appearance, and man, I have nothing against Shimanuki, but Yamamuro's art is just so polished compared to everything we saw in the first OVA. And I'm happy to say it's the same for his animation. Whenever you have Yamauchi boarding a fight for Yamamuro, it's sure to be good. There's a lot of creative angles, and Yamamuro's animation has a good amount of movement. The flipping around has a nice rhythm, you got that stylish easing in and out on actions. It's a fun scene. And you know, honestly, I'm surprised he was actually on this at all. Outside of the TV series, he was character designer and supervisor for Z Movie 9, which released only a month before this OVA, so yeah, he was really busy. But soon enough, everyone meets up and confronts Dr. Lychee. He drops some more lore, how he was the top Tuffle, Saphirian scientist, and Hachiak is his ultimate creation that will get revenge on the Saiyans. It's really interesting looking back how much GT's writers borrowed from this. You even got the test tube thingy. Vegeta's part about the Saiyans being slaves to the Tuffles is a strange addition though. He never elaborates, he kind of just drops it and that's that. It wasn't even hinted out in the backstory they gave in the last episode. Everyone is seen shaking hands and getting along. Maybe it was expanded more in the video game but cut out for time here. A little strange. And another interesting dialogue choice is Goku saying Hachiak is more powerful than Broly. Knowing Koyama's love for Broly, I'm half surprised he didn't write him in here. Honestly, he probably would have made more sense than Turles. On the visual side, my guess is that Onishi animated this section here. Everything else, not so sure, but that's really it. Lychee says he wants revenge on the Saiyans and the rest of the episode is just punching time. So I guess that's the only thing to analyze. So the start of the battle is animated by Hideko Okimoto. He'd been with the series since the latter part of the King Piccolo arc, working alongside Katsumi Aoshima right up through to the Saiyan arc, and after Aoshima left the TV series, he would assist mostly on Studio Junior episodes. Then after that he would work on Studio Carpenter episodes. Didn't return for GT though. My guess is that he was probably one of Toei's own in-house animators, but yeah, can't say for sure. Besides that, Shimanuki does not hesitate to correct his work, and honestly it's for the best thing that he did. That forehead was crazy and the adjustments to the expressions are a big improvement. There's not much to say about his animation, it's mostly just stills with occasionally some flashing lights. There's also some more Gengar from his scene which gives an interesting perspective at how things originally looked. His style again is a bit rough, and Shimanuki adding more flow to the hair is a nice touch. This piece though is pretty solid. Unsure where Okimoto's part stops, there is a bit of Hisada in here with that reused shot of Gohan. I think that's 3 times they've shown that now. Then Shida comes back. His expressions are so good, glad he never lost that. And without getting too sidetracked, one of the animators drew Vegeta in Super Saiyan with pupils. I know that mistake has been made with Trunks, but it's so random to see it on Vegeta. And the art style looks nothing like Shida either, so completely clueless who drew that one. The actual impact by Shida though is very intense, the expressions, the timing, spacing. It really does feel like Lychee is being torn apart. And it seems to be all over. The last generator has disappeared, pack it up, shift over, credits are rolling in. Oh. What's even happening? So now Hachiak has taken the spite of the Doctor and it's overloaded him, or it. And if Hachiak starts to roam space, it'll be the end of the universe. Terrible digital effects aside, Hisada seems to animate the majority of this section, and his lightning effects paired with Yamauchi's love of purple hues blends together perfectly, quite intense. And you know, one thing I appreciate about Hachiak is he gets straight to the whooping, like no dialogue. The second he appears, Vegeta's gone. Hisada seems to animate the punch, but the impact definitely looks like Shida. Those ears and hand poses give it away every time. For Shida standards, it's a bit limited, with a heavy use of camera shake and stills for impacts. Works fine though. And with the amount he's animated on this, it's, I guess, kind of to be expected. The motion is also nowhere near as smooth as his usual output, so guessing the latter had an effect on that as well. Oh, and random Takeuchi cut. Then there's some more Takeuchi, it seems. He animates just over a minute here, and Shimanuki does seem to redraw entire cuts, so it's more polished than Takeuchi's section in the last episode. Although there's still the odd untouched shot that makes its way in. After Takeuchi, Tate comes back. Again, you can see with the ear shape, it's instantly him. The chubby faces make it pretty obvious as well. And man, his animation is so distinctive and fun in the way it moves. Just the arcs to the motion, then the poses and timing. Like, I'm currently watching One Piece and it's always obvious when he comes up. He has a very unique way in how he moves characters. I'm glad that's an aspect of his work you got to see on Super a lot as well. Unsure exactly when Tate's part ends, although Shida returns. Again, there's Gengar available as well, so that's kinda cool to look at. It seems Shimanuki really left a lot of his work untouched, with exception to adding some rips in Trunks' clothing. He also does the same with Goku's clothes in the next cut, fixing it up where it was meant to be ripped. Honestly, under Shimanuki, this OVA gives probably the most unfiltered look at Shida's art style in the Z era. Like, it's no secret that when he was working at Studio Last House under Uchiyama, his work got completely corrected away, but even after he left Last House, his art would still be redrawn quite a bit, whether under Yamamuro, Nakatsuru, Miyahara. I mean, Shida does technically work as an animation director himself on some video games, but in an episodic format, it isn't until Super you'll see this much of Shida's original art make it into an episode. Anyways, after Shida, Onoshi makes an appearance, kinda. His cut from the last episode is reused, except with blood and rips in the bodysuit added. Even Hisada's cut of Gohan from the last episode is reused. Shida does the rest though with a pretty solid beam struggle. I really can't get enough of his character art, and his fiery effects are a great way to finish off the fighting. Then Kazuya Hisada is back and wraps it up when the crew returns to Earth with a very well drawn Shiri Goku. Bless up Hisada. Now, it's technically the end of the OVA, but not of the animated content. You see, there was another plan to Eradicate the Saiyans game that released the next year, and big shock, it recycled heaps of scenes from this OVA, but there was some new stuff animated for the alternate endings. The main one of interest is the giant Hachiyak ending. This is where that fairy comes in. And for some context, you know how I said earlier Goku originally visits a bunch of planets, but it's cut for time here? Well, in this game he meets that fairy on one of those planets, and in this ending she leads Goku to Hachiyak's core. She then gets captured, but Goku saves her. It seems the majority of this ending is animated by Yuji Hakamada from Studio Carpenter. Ain't a fan of his big-nosed Goku, but the rest of his art is pretty good. His animation is a bit stiff, not a lot of anticipation behind attacks. Effects work is solid though, I'll give him that. There also seems to possibly be a bit of Tate here. It definitely ain't Hakamada. I don't have a staff list though, so it isn't the easiest to figure out. In the other ending, Hachiyak gets some massive beefed out form and Goku uses a spirit bomb while in Super Saiyan 2 defeat him. And it has some cool additions after that when they get back to Earth, like Vegeta slapping Roshi with a tape. It also actually shows Chi-Chi. It really does feel like the original OVA went out of its way to not show her. Even the other endings didn't. Honestly though, it's my favorite ending out of all of them, just simply because of that Vegeta moment. As for animation, looks like Hisada animated the majority of that one. Overall, back to the OVA, it's a solid team effort. Shida and Hisada are really the backbone on the animation front. As for 90 animation OVA standards, it ain't nothing crazy, especially when you look at other stuff that was coming out that same year. But like, even for Yamauchi standards, this is pretty average work for him. Like, it's by no means bad, but this is the same guy as mentioned at the start, who choreographed the Kid Buu vs Goku fight, as well as the Goku vs Majin Vegeta fight. Like, if you're looking at Z's best choreographed scenes, you'll almost always find Yamauchi there. And on top of that, you had the majority of Dragon Ball Z's top action animators. You had the best from, say, Garsha, Last House, Shindo Productions, so it wasn't like he lacked the team to pull something off on the same level as 232 and 279, and these are OVAs, so there is more time and money put in than your average Z episode. Who knows, if Studio Cockpit was involved, maybe it could have been different. Plot-wise, I mean, it's pretty bare bones to what it could have been. In fairness, it was always going to be hard to implement a video game story into two 30-minute episodes, but there were a lot of cool ideas and concepts cut that I feel you still could have included if you just trimmed down the fighting. I mean, battles is pretty much the entirety of the second episode, and these are meant to be essentially guides, so there's no reason not to cover those smaller details. Anyways, on a positive note, the premise of Tuffles seeking revenge on Saiyans at the time was something different and a cool concept. Honestly, I kind of wish that was an arc in the Dragon Ball Z TV series. It low-key would have made more sense than bringing back the Red Ribbon Army, and would have flowed on well with the whole Namek arc, or even as like a mini filler arc. Like, I don't hate the Garlic Jr. arc as much as some people, but I don't know, that would have been more interesting than bringing him back. Oh well, at least GT had to go at that concept and made Baby far more of an interesting villain than Hachiyak ever was. Anyways, that's my final yap. What did you think of this OVA? Let me know in the comments, please give like, and with that, thank you to my patrons, and I'll see you later.